Let's go ahead and get started. So let me just introduce myself. I am Rachel Rose. I am an R&D supervisor at Industrial Light and Magic, and very importantly, a co-chair for our Diversity and Inclusion Working Group at the Academy Software Foundation, and an alternate board member for the board. It's an organization that I'm very passionate in, as well as a topic of diversity and inclusion that I also feel very strongly about. So I've been very happy to be able to be involved in this group. I'll pass it off to Carol to introduce herself as well.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Hey, I'm Carol Payne, and I'm Rachel's co-chair for the Diversity and Inclusion Working Group. Yeah, I think she said a lot of it. I also am heavily involved in other ASWF projects. I'm the chair of Open Color IO, and we do a ton of work all the time just to move this mission forward. And we're lucky to be joined by lots of other folks on this call today that'll get introduced later, but we're really excited to see the growth of the working group because the number of faces represented here today mean that what we're doing is working. And it's a process and we'll continue it, but we're really excited to share a few things with you today, first in a presentation and then in a panel.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at what we're going to talk about today. The goal for today is to give you a brief update on what we've been doing for the last year, as well as talk about the next year, and also have a really wonderful panel with many of the members of our working group, in particular the folks that have been organizing our summer learning program. So we're going to start with just a quick reminder of the mission of both the ASWF as well as our working group and the goals for that working group. Talk a little bit about the year that we've just completed, as well as some survey results from a survey that we did midway through the year. We'll also talk a bit about the future plans and then move into that panel that we discussed already. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the mission of the ASWF. So importantly, the ASWF is really trying to increase the quality and quantity of open source contributions across our industries, especially within visual effects and animation. There's a number of different things that go into this, the organization that really make it very powerful, especially bringing together the many different member companies that participate in the ASWF. When the ASWF was established, there were a number of goals that were also established along with this mission. So one of them specifically was that we wanted to be able to focus on diversity and inclusion and raising the profile of software engineers in our industry. So this particular goal is the one that the working group that we are a part of was organized around, was to try to achieve this. So if we take a look at the mission statement for our particular working group, what you see is that really what we are about is breaking down boundaries. We want to be able to allow people to participate within the ASWF easily. We want to increase connections between people and bring in a wide range of new and exciting faces into our organization so that it better reflects or best reflects the communities that we serve. We also love that our working group brings together a wide variety of different individuals across across our industries, who are all very passionate about diversity and inclusion. So this continues to be what motivates us on a day-to-day basis. Now, when we formed our mission statement, we also formed 3 goals that we, as a working group, try to achieve with all of the things that we do. The first is that we want to increase ASWF diversity and representation. We want our membership as well as our leaders to very much reflect, again, that community that we all are a part of and love to be a part of. We also want to have external outreach and education to bring in new faces that are still early in their career and teach them about what we are all about. And then finally, we want to be able to provide member guidance to our member companies and the individuals that are part of our community around topics related to D&I. I'm now going to pass it off to Carol for the next section.
Thanks, Rachel. So we're going to do a little bit of a recap of what we've done in the last year. And, a lot of you on this call are already familiar with a lot of the work that we did. So bear with us as we kind of go through some things and summarize, because I think it's really important to talk about where we've been and look back on the things we have accomplished every time Rachel and I put together one of these decks, and this year we had a ton of help from Karen. It was really cool to see that we just have all of these things that they're done, they're finished, and it's really awesome. So it's cool to see the progress in that way. The first one we're going to talk about is the governing board succession plan. This one was an initiative that was a joint effort between the Diversity Inclusion Working Group and the governing board of the Academy Software Foundation, as the name states. When we looked at, the governing board, which is, representative of the foundation and its member companies, and the work that we do. When we looked at that a couple of years ago, the amazing group of people, tons and tons of experience. They brought a wealth of knowledge and expertise into the founding of the foundation, and that was really important. But they also all sort of were pretty homogenous, looked very similar, were almost 100% male. And so when we looked at that, everyone agreed that for the success of the foundation into the future, it was important to put some guidelines in place to increase that diversity and representation, to make it operate and feel more like what is true of our industry at large, which is a lot more diverse. So we put these goals in place. I'm not going to read through them all, but we came up with these in conjunction with a subgroup of the Diversity Inclusion Working Group and the governing board. And it got accepted on April 26th of last year, and it implemented a couple different things, one of which is term limits. Another one was a phase-in plan of how to do this and how to put this plan in place so that we don't disrupt the day-to-day operations of the foundation, because that's obviously number one importance, is continuing to do the work that we do in the foundation. And we also put in place a plan for alternates, so that the governing board members can select a person from their company that one can vote for them in their place when they can't make a meeting, because we all know that's the reason, one of the main reasons Rachel and I are co-chairs, is because it's really important for us to ensure continuity of the group, and with just one person, that's really hard. And then the other point of the alternate is to hopefully be the primary governing board member when the one that they're an alternate for has served their 4-year term. And that's really, it's been really successful in the year since we implemented, almost this year since we implemented this more, a little bit more. We have seen really great results. We now have 5 or more female identifying people on the governing board. The alternates are also in place for all the member companies and are also super diverse. And we've heard nothing but great feedback about the implementation of this process. It's been very smooth, and we're really excited to see where it goes in the future. I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking about last year's summer learning program. We're going to spend more time talking about this year's summer learning program later on. Karen's going to talk to us about that, but I just wanted to highlight that last year's summer learning program was super successful. We had a BIPOC and Latinx focus. Each year the summer learning program has a focus group on a minority or underrepresented group of people in our industry. And we had 19 learners. And we made a couple changes last year to our application process and how we ran it that meant that we were able to focus more on technical careers versus just a general interest in the entertainment industry, which helped us focus our mentors and our learning better. And then we had one accepted last year as after completing the program and other things as an associate technical director at DreamWorks Animation, which is really exciting. We like to see that there's all aspects of this program, including the ability to meet people at companies that work on projects in the foundation and be able to get exposure to the types of jobs that are available. And we're really excited to continue seeing that and talk more about this year's program as well. The last initiative that we're going to talk about quickly is the redo of our diversity inclusion landing page on the ASWF website. I had included some screenshots of it here because words really don't mean a ton of things. We were excited to get this completed. It needed an overhaul quite a lot. Before, it kind of just had, you know, a link to our meeting calendar and a link to our Slack channel and things like that. And Emily and the team at the Linux Foundation did a ton of work helping us revamp this so that we could highlight our goals that we've been talking about today and how to get in touch with us in more ways, and then our initiatives that we're currently working on. And this is a place where we can now point people to if they have questions about what the group is and what we do and why we do it. It has all of that kind of one-stop shop information. And also it has links out to our Confluence wiki that has more detailed information about all of our initiatives. It's where we keep meeting notes. It's where we keep all of our summer learning program information. And it will be where we keep our documents of all initiatives moving forward. So this is what we consider a landing page with a link out to all of the awesome work that the group is doing. You can access that from directly from the ASWF's website. So if you ever want to, if anybody ever asks what we're up to, we ask that you point people here, and we'll keep this up to date as we move forward. So now I'm going to pass it back to Rachel, talk about working group survey.
Yeah, so midway through the year, one of the things that we were interested in hearing from our working group was specifically how we were doing on those 3 goals that I already mentioned at the very beginning of this presentation. As you can tell from what Carol was just saying, we try to take on initiatives throughout the year that affect each of those different goals. So the things that we just presented, each one represents an example of something we did in each of those three goal areas. So we wanted to ask everyone, how are we doing on these goals? So this is just the results of those surveys, and I'll try to tell you a little bit about what we read into it, especially given the comments people gave based on the survey itself. So the next slide is specifically about how we're doing in terms of increasing diversity in leadership and membership. People were very happy about the work that we had done within with the governing board to put in place succession plans. And so there was a lot of success in that area. And the main thing that what we saw was that we still need to work on continuing to bring in a wide variety of diverse people within the organization as a whole. The next topic was specifically how we're doing on guidance and resources. This is the one that I think that we have the most room to grow in. The work that we did to bring together the web page is really great and gives us a really great landing page, but we'd like to be able to provide, excuse me, more details on that page that really do help our member companies. The final survey question was around how we're doing with external outreach and education. This is an area we focused a lot on. We have a lot of passion within our group for increasing this outreach and education. So what we found in this survey was specifically people were very happy with the initiatives that we were doing, but there's a lot of work to continue doing in this area. So we hope to continue to focus on it because it's something that we know is important and we're very passionate about. Passing it back off to you, Carol.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really awesome to see. You know, the results of that survey was just we just gave it to two of the members of our working group. And so we're going to try and do that every year and do a little bit, you know, obviously we check in our meetings and check in Slack, and everybody always has the opportunity to provide us feedback, but having that in a collated way where we ask everybody once a year in a working group to give us feedback on what we're doing and make sure that we're staying aligned to the goals, or that people have a place to put stuff anonymously if they would like to, is really important to us. So future, what does it look like? We wanted to use just this timeline of 2023 to talk about a little bit the way we plan out our years for the Diversity Inclusion Working Group. We try, based on some of the feedback from that survey, to start every meeting with a look at the goals of the group and this timeline to track how we're doing on our initiatives. So people in the working group are pretty familiar with this slide at this point. But I'm happy to say that we are making pretty good progress this year. You can see a couple of these initiatives we'll talk about more in detail in this section, but summer learning program this year is in progress. We did a lot of that. We finished the landing page redo, and we're in planning for dev days, which we'll talk about in a second. And the next, obviously the future kind of part of this is Q4 for us. And we don't have too much to talk about in terms of what we want to do for 2024, because we're planning on doing our 2024 planning in Q4 of this year, so soon. But we know that it's going to include a couple initiatives that we already have, that we're going to continue to do the summer learning program. But honestly, we have a lot of other ideas that will come to fruition when we do our 2024 planning in Q4 of this year. So these 2023 focus areas that we'll talk about, these 3 initiatives that are either in progress or getting started now, fall under these 3 pillars that we've been talking a lot about. Dev Day, which we'll talk about on the next slide, falls under representation, increasing representation in the foundation. Summer learning program falls under external outreach and education. And then the initiative that we're going to start taking a look at and scoping in Q4 is the open source diversity framework. So Dev Days, this one is a new initiative for us. It was born out of conversations that we've been having for a year or so now at the technical advisory committee and the governing board level of the foundation, around wanting to increase the contributor base of to the foundation's projects for a couple reasons. One, it fits into our goals for diversity and inclusion of like we want to increase representation in our projects, as well as on our board and on our leadership, and that's super important to us. And 2, it's really important for the health and future of the projects of the foundation that we're taking a focus on bringing new developers into the foundation's projects, helping them get started. A lot of these projects have incredibly senior developers that were the founding developers on these projects, and they're amazing, and the wealth of knowledge that they have is incredible, but they are not going to, I mean, it sounds a little bit morbid, but they're not going to be around forever. They might just choose to need to take a break, even if you take a less morbid kind of approach to it. And that should be available to them. We want our projects to get to the point where their success is not dependent on 1 or 2 or even 3 people. We want these projects to be healthy and stand alone on the community that's dependent on them far into the future. And so Dev Days is one of our initiatives that we're going to start and try to see if we can tackle bringing some new folks into the foundation to work on these projects. It's going to be organized sort of like a hackathon, but we've decided to call it a Dev Day because we really want to pull away from the competition aspect of a lot of hackathons and increase the focus on community and learning in this initiative. We've decided on the 2nd week of October, it's going to be a 48-hour period. So encouraging participation of a full day over that 48-hour period. We've still got a lot of details to work out. It's going to be aimed at encouraging developers new to open source to participate in an ASWF project in lots of different ways. We had a meeting with the project leads the other week talking about what this could look like. And it could look like just submitting a PR for a good first issue on a project, but it could also look like looking at some documentation and fixing some unit tests. It could also look like taking an API from one of the projects and doing your own little side project using the API from one of a project. It doesn't, our goal is not to get code contributions for projects with this initiative. Our goal is to introduce folks in a way that's understandable and really thought through, to encourage long-term contribution. Obviously, we're targeting junior and mid-level engineers for the most part, but also anybody that wants to participate should be able to participate. If you're a senior engineer and you've never contributed to open source, this event is also for you. It's going to be fully virtual, and if you're interested in learning more and helping out with the event, please join our brand new Dev Days channel on the ASWF Slack for more information. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Karen.
Hey everyone, so I help the Diversity Inclusion Working Group with the movement of our summer learning program. So just a quick look back, this is our third year in running the summer learning program, which falls under that education and outreach secondary column that Carol and Rachel covered in a previous slide. So the first year you may have seen this, and we just covered the slide on 2022, but the first year we did the women and or non-binary individuals. Then the second year we did the BIPOC or Latinx communities. And this year we're towards the end, but still running with the 2023 cohort, which is the LGBTQIA+ community. Each one of these years represents about 20 learners. I think 2022 we had 19 versus 20. So that's great that we're able to really push this impact and start to see really positive growth each year. And that has to do everything with the people that are involved, which we'll take a look at here on the next slide. So I am going to jump into chat here and just pop our wiki page for you to cruise around and see. I wanted to first really recognize some of the growth that has happened through our organization committee. So myself and Caitlyn, who's on the call today, we are the co-chairs of this sort of subgroup with which falls underneath the Diversity Inclusion Working Group. Sean and Tom are also on today, but we, as you can see here, we have a couple people on this organizing committee. So it's really helpful that we had this going into this third year. We started earlier, which was also really nice for the planning aspect of this group to really hit the ground running with our third cohort, which started back I think we officially started July 1st because it's usually the birthday present that I give to myself. But June, we really started to have some traction in inviting people onto our Slack and, kind of expanding the program in that way. And to that end, we typically run the previous programs were 8, 9, maybe 10 weeks. This year, our growth has been that we went a full 12 weeks, which is really exciting and definitely stretching us to our limits, as well as the SLPs, the student learners, to really dedicate some time in the summer to their learning. To that end, we also started every SLP with a single starter course, whereas previously they might have gone off in different directions based off of their interest. We did this because in the previous year, we saw some trends happening. So, intro to Python in Maya was a typical one that, we might have a lot of technical people who are in computer science majors because it is primarily juniors and seniors in undergraduate or recent graduates. So we do have that highly technical crowd for the most part, but they may not have seen Maya before. So this was our opportunity to really bring everybody together and learn one thing together, as well as our structure of breaking them off into teams and having their team lead, another one of our our cohort, our organizing committee, to talk with them on a regular basis to say, well, what are you interested in? What's really exciting for you? And then that helps tailor their program for the rest of the 12 weeks after they're done with that first starter program. And of course, Furby helped us out a lot with that starter course and just trying to make sure that all of the technical part was good to go as they fell into that. You also see on this slide to the left some orange highlights here that I want to speak briefly about, because this link, although it is sort of the platform that our SLPs use and our team leads, our mentors, kind of filter through to get some information about our program, we also have external resources that you can use at your company or might point people to if you have some questions that are coming up to you rather than trying to create it yourself. So to that end, we have the Mentor Starter Pack, which is a great resource just to figure out what should you be talking about what are some things, some prompts that you can start some of those one-on-one discussions if you've never met someone before. So a little bit of that networking training, which anybody can benefit for, but we do obviously point our SLPs to that. Similarly, in that SLP, benefits, but also external benefits is our demo reel suggestions. So this is something that we've been sort of gathering from different resources, and Caitlyn did an awesome job at just making all of this work and be really helpful for our learners as well as external partners. And speaking of, just below the demo reel suggestions are our external resources. So this sort of blends into our ability to kind of expand our resources to members within ASWF, but is obviously trying to get more of that new entry-level person interested and feeling confident about applying to an entry-level position. So there is that external resources section as well. And then finally, for this section, we did a lot more live sessions this year. So the speaker series was trying to get together people in the industry, hopefully if they identified with this group as well for that representation component, so that our SLPs could look and see someone who has been successful, who identifies similarly to them. So our speaker series is new this year, which I'm really excited. I think it has been an excellent opportunity for everybody involved. We had working sessions as well, which were primarily live. So that could be anywhere, sort of like office hours, could be an actual working session. Hey, I'm having this problem and, come to this time. But it has sort of trended towards like a hangout session and just sort of a get to know you time that people can come together and learn more about their cohort. And also new this year were guest mentors. So we found in previous years that we had some mentors that might be going to SIGGRAPH, right? Or maybe they took a week off to go to the beach or whatever the vacation might be. So we had a list of just sort of one, you could kind of pop in and meet someone new and not miss that mentor session. So that was all growth for this year alone, from the past couple of years that have been dedicated by this group of people that you see on the screen. And that takes us to our next slide for future growth of the SLP. So this has been something that I think has been haunting us since the beginning, this idea of something that's a little bit more structured and predictable, as well as continuous. So one day we would love to have this sort of tiered system where we have the bottom tier, that tier one of the triangle being basic skills. So you have someone who might not have ever seen Maya before or really knows Maya, but they don't really know how Python plugs into Maya. So really those basics would be covered in that tier one, where an SLP would come in, get that idea of the basic skills, but also be introduced to all the different spaces that is this industry, so that they have that ability to say, well, that looks interesting. I want to go over to lighting. That's really interesting to me. And maybe I'm not a rigger, and so they start to see an area that is of interest to them, which allows them, after that first 12 weeks, to pop up to tier two, which is where they start to find their concentration, something that really elevates their excitement for the industry, and then start to really focus on skills needed to be successful in lighting, for example. And that's sort of the tier two, that you're already past the whole, what is Maya, how does Python interface with Maya, and some of those introductory skills, and you're now really starting to hone that. And then hopefully, that would ascend to a tier three situation where they are actively contributing. So maybe they pull in a project or attend an ASWF meeting for one of the projects, and start to see how that specific project under ASWF does contribute to their area of passion. And this can, obviously give them the skills needed to apply to a entry-level position, but also give them that networking opportunity. And each one of these tiers would be supported by what we have been developing for SLP. So the the skill training, as well as like mentorship and the peer community as well. So there's a lot of growth potential for SLP, but right now I think that the steps that we're currently taking are putting us in a really good position to make the ASWF the host for this go-to program for training and networking. Usually young people, but it's not always the case. Like I said before, it's typically juniors, seniors in undergraduate, as well as recent grads. So we're looking at that cultivation of those entry-level positions, which is only going to widen the gamut for more diversity opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen. So very briefly, I just want to talk about one last initiative, and then we're going to be jumping into a panel specifically with the organizers that Karen was just mentioning to talk more about the growth of the SLP program in a panel discussion. So the last initiative that we wanted to mention that we are planning to start this year is an open source diversity framework. So there is a lot of interest at many different companies in building diversity, inclusion, or DEI systems and programs at their locations. There's been a lot of work across many different companies to try to make these very powerful programs, and everyone only benefits from sharing that information. And we've found that a lot of different places, different companies that are member companies of the ASWF are interested in being able to share what they've learned and try to learn from what others have done. So we are exploring whether there might be an opportunity to provide an open source framework for DEI programs. But in terms of concrete goals for the year, the goal really is to just start discovery work and start deciding what a scope of something like this might look like, as well as to really push on publishing some of the resources that we've gathered as a part of the working group, so that we can provide those to other people. Now, before I pass it off to the panel, I just want to take a quick moment to remind everyone that, obviously the ASWF is an open source group, and so it's only just as good as the individuals that participate. And so we really encourage everyone to get involved. And specifically, we're really interested in you getting involved in our D&I group. So, you can attend monthly meetings, volunteer your time, share initiatives and successes from your company. One of the easiest ways to do all of this is to join our diversity channel on Slack. So please go ahead and do that. We also have a related channel that's brand new for the ASWF and is a new big initiative that we're trying to push on, which is an accessibility channel. The goal here really is to raise awareness of building our tools that in a way that is accessible. We want to be able to standardize accessibility approaches across our projects. We want to serve deaf and hard of hearing communities, and we want to be able to identify any barriers that we have towards participation in the ASWF. So please join that new channel, and we're very excited about it. So with that, I just want to let everyone know there may be a small amount of time for some questions at the end. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them in the chat about anything we've already discussed or anything that comes up in the panel now. And I'm going to pass it off to Tracy Priest, who's a senior software engineer for Pipeline at DreamWorks Animation and our moderator today.
Thanks, Rachel and Carol. So the ASWF Summer Learning Program has been running now for 3 years. Since the start, the program has been centered around the 3 pillars of mentorship, learning, and community to help bring new faces to the technical side of the VFX and animation industries. While those pillars have remained, the program has adapted and changed each year, building on past successes and learnings. Today, we get to talk to some of the organizers for the SLP for 2023 to discuss the growth of the program over the years and how mentorship, learning, and community have changed to further the success of those participating. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. Let's start with Karen, who is one of the Summer Learning Program's co-chairs.
Hi, everyone. I was just realizing that I didn't introduce myself before when I was speaking, so I apologize for that. But my name is Karen Ruggles. I teach at the undergraduate level at DeSales University. I'm an associate professor of computer science, but my specialty is 3D animation. And I also am the varsity esports program director, which is very exciting, and obviously very much involved in the ASWF Diversity and Inclusion Working Group as the co-chair for this group. So I'm going to pass it to my co-chair, Caitlyn.
Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Caitlin Pollock. I'm a lead technical director at DreamWorks Animation, wrapping up Trolls the End Together right now. And I have been involved with the D&I group for 3 years now. My big personal interest is primarily with outreach, and so it was the formation of this summer learning program that drew me into the program, and then moving up to just a participant in previous years and co-chair this year. Thank you. And I will pass it off to Tom.
Hello, my name is Tom Zenner. I'm a lead technical director at Industrial Light and Magic. I've, like Caitlin, been participating with the program for the past 3 years, and that's kind of what drew me in. And I've been really interested in the mentoring aspect and seeing the program develop and grow and being able to contribute to that. It's been really great. And I'll pass it off to Ximena.
Hi, I'm Ximena Jaramillo. I was a learner in the first year, and now I'm a team lead for this year. And I'm a software engineer at JPL. I work on 3D visualization, so it's really cool to be able to mix the two together, and excited to see it grow.
So thanks, everyone. So our first question is for Karen. One of the things that learners in the SLP have really appreciated is the personal relationship they build with their mentor. What growth have we seen in the past 3 years to help strengthen that mentorship?
That's a great question. And I think that there are the sort of threads of this that any other place that is hosting internships that feature a mentorship branch can also learn from what we have experienced these past 3 years. So part of what we did to just hone the process is an application for mentors so that we get an idea of not only what their experience is in mentoring, but also their specialty. And so that makes the matching process to the learner, which we refer to as the SLP, as a little bit more, I guess, harmonious. I'm sure there's something that everyone can learn from everyone, but to see somebody in the industry who's working in an area that you're interested in has been a great way to kind of push that forward. I mentioned before the representation within the group for the speaker series, but that is something that we also are looking to increase this year, but also in future years to hopefully have the underrepresented population as mentors as well. So that identity aspect and representation is something that we look for in our growth. Other things, the Mentor Starter Pack I thought was really helpful just to really kickstart some of those questions, and that's available on our site if you want to take a look at that and iterate off of that or help us iterate for our own purposes. But it's definitely something to take a look at.
Awesome. Yeah, I was really impressed this year. I participated as a team lead in the first year and also this year, seeing all of the resources that the organizing team put together was really cool to have. Okay, so Tom, it seems like it could be daunting for anyone to approach weekly conversations with someone you've never met. In terms of mentee-mentor conversations, what resources have you found to help build stable relationships, particularly with underrepresented populations?
I've just always asked my mentees what they're interested in and how I can help. So the first year I participated in the program, my mentee was a student very early in her career. So she just was curious to learn everything about the VFX and animation pipeline. So a lot of our weekly meetings centered around that. Last year, my mentee was a student a little further along, so he had more questions about starting in the industry, and we focused a lot about that. And this year, my mentee is a woman early in her career, and she's in Finland. So we've had a lot of conversations about finding work abroad, which I have no experience in, but have been very fortunate to leverage some connections via ILM and others in the group to help facilitate those conversations and give her advice. So just talking to them initially, seeing what their goals are and figuring out how I can leverage my skills or my network to help them has been really helpful the past 3 years.
Thanks. Ximena, so you're in this interesting place where you were previously a learner, and now you are helping lead the program. Can you speak a little bit about how the program has affected you and what you are in turn doing now to bring the same to the current batch of learners?
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, the program was kind of life-changing for me. I remember, Googling around, feeling kind of lost. I was like, I know I like animation, but I don't do a lot of art. I don't know how to do this. So how can I contribute with my computer science background? And then I found this program, the first iteration. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to apply, I'll try. And then just being able to meet really awesome people here and in the program who have the same interests and just explain to me, this is what's available. There's so many options for you. And just being able to learn also alongside that, because I love taking courses. So I was like, in my comfort zone there. And so being able to give back to the program, giving that same light bulb moment to the new learners and offer my own experiences, like, I went through this myself, and explain to you, or I'm not sure, let me find out myself. It's just really rewarding for me. And I want to be able to give them their own light bulb moment. And it's a great program.
That's awesome. I have mentioned it previously in other groups that I've thought it was so cool to see people who participated in some of the career panels that we had in the first year of the Diversity and Inclusion Working Group, participate in the summer learning program that first year, and then continue on to be team leads and mentors in the following year. So it's great to see you here.
Great to be here.
Caitlyn, when this program first started, the basic idea was to find a way to jumpstart learning for diverse individuals interested in knowing more about VFX and animation. From those early days to now, what growth have you seen with SLP in regards to learning?
In regards to learning, I feel like learning was something we had a good solid foundation with in the beginning with the self-directed online courses, and so that same basic idea has continued. But as Karen was mentioning, one of the things that I enjoyed developing this year was everyone starting on the same course. The self-directed learning, while it creates a very personalized learning experience, it also can create a bit of a disjointed one, especially with a virtual program. And so everyone starting together on something felt like then we were also then adding to that community aspect that I know is in future questions coming up. And so I was excited to see that develop with the learning program. We've also had sort of a bi-focus of very specific Udemy courses that they're picking out, as well as FX PhD, which has been a partner for the past 2 years, which is more of a subscription. And I really like that approach as well, because a lot of them are coming in with not a focus. They don't know exactly what they want to do. So they can jump into all sorts of little courses and do 10 minutes. Oh, that's not sparking my interest right now, and jump to another one and really explore and have that exploration period.
Awesome. Karen, in terms of learning, what is a challenge or barrier that you have seen for the learners that we might be able to dismantle for the industry as a whole?
That's so one of the trends that I have been seeing that isn't specifically surprising coming from academia is wait, that exists, right? This idea that the technology and the arts and this thing that I love called animation is something that I, as a computer science major in undergraduate, can very much contribute to and impact. So just putting that light bulb moment on, or at least on the stage to say, hey, here are some options for you. And you don't have to be necessarily an artist to have great impact in this industry. So that was part of our inspiration the first year when we did the webinar series, which are still available. And actually, I still point students to that on the ASWF YouTube channel. So that has been a challenge to just in terms of learning to open that door and say, this is an option. for you. I think other things that we could do to help expand and reach other people that we might want to enhance the diversity aspect at different companies is just taking a look at entry-level job postings. I think this is pretty basic and has gotten better over the years, but just looking at the wording for the entry-level positions to make sure that it is open. As an undergraduate professor, I know that there's really terrible metrics specifically for women who they see 10 things, and if they don't have 9 out of 10 of the things, they're like, oh, I shouldn't apply. So I have actually seen a lot through ILM has done a really good job of this, of saying, like, if you don't meet every single one of these, still apply, and I say to students, if it's 60%, especially for an entry-level position, a lot of times you're going to learn so much anyway, just on the job, but just encouraging more people to apply. And I think companies can do a good job about making their post, face that a little bit more directly. And in addition to that, other pipelines that entry-level positions or internships are another good example, is to just take a look at your internship pipeline and where people are posting. Do you have existing relationships with current schools? I know that there are a lot of those out there where it's like, oh, well, we get all of our interns from school X, right? Which can be a problem. I mean, that's if you look at the makeup of who's in that program, it is going to be, for the most part, a very specific person. So I think just re-examining the pipelines that lead into those sort of first job opportunities, being involved with ASWF, trumpeting that to your organization and saying, hey, we, they have this diversity and inclusion working group. We've done all the work, right? So just send your people over to us for, mentorship. If you can just spread the word. I think that that's another way that we can, as an organization, really impact how many more people are coming in. And also, we, after every SLP, we do at the end of the session have a presentation. So the SLPs all put together like a resume and a demo reel and what they're interested in. It's a nice, quick, hopefully 45-minute-ish to take a look at 20 young people who are just at that edge of internship or entry-level position. So sending a recruiter to that, or just reaching out to us to get the Google Doc area, where I'm more than happy to share that with you if you can't make the presentation. But these are all definitely actionable ways that people can take a look at what they're doing and also impact what the ASWF is already pushing for.
Oh, thanks, Karen. Tom, your role this year is to lead and organize the team leads. How has this extra layer of support from the organizing team helped to the program this year? Are there any learnings for the future?
Absolutely. I was hoping at the end of the program to send out a survey or some communication to the team lead, so Ximena heads up, to see how that all went for you and see if there's anything we could do to better support future iterations.
Caitlin, a key part of the SLP is that each person participating is not alone. They are a part of a community learning together. What growth have we seen in the past 3 years with parts of the program that support and strengthen the community?
Community, I think, it's always an interesting one because each group is going to have a different way that they form their community. So one of the ones that I think has been fun to see this year is very early on, one of the learners decided they wanted to make a Discord channel that was just for them. No adults is how we were jokingly talking about it. And it was great to see them dive in to create that community for themselves. Yeah, we've been trying, we try to keep the Slack group active because they've created their fun Discord group. The Slack channel this year is a bit more business formal version of that community, but in previous years that has been a space for everything. So I think every year is going to be different and we'll see how it progresses. I think we have the team set up too. There's been some references to team leads that like you and Ximena are this year. And so there's groups of 4 to 5 of the learners, each with their team lead. And I have found, I was a team lead in the previous years, and I found that that team also then forms its own little community, which is always fun to see the interaction there. Yeah.
Thanks, Caitlin. Ximena, why do you think community is one of the 3 pillars of this program? Is it learning and mentorship enough?
Yeah, just referring to the chat, the Holly Wardle that Caitlin came up is amazing for the community. I do it whenever I can, but yeah, community is just really most important. It's just really encouraging to go through something with people, especially something maybe you've never seen before, and just you come into roadblocks and you say, I have no idea how to fix this. I need help. And so it's really encouraging not only to have your, your team leads, your co-chairs, everyone to reach out to. It's like, and the adults, the teachers, but it's also nice to have your fellow students to go to and say, have you run into this? I'm not sure. So I think that's just a really nice community to build in the business terms. And then also in the social terms, we have like our social hours. Our team meets every 2 weeks, and we'll talk about our progress for a bit, and then we'll also talk about what you do this week. How's your week? Have you seen any cool movies? And it's cool to also just meet other people in the group and also see them grow. I had a friend in the first group, and I got to watch her grow into her new role in animation, and that was just really rewarding for me too, as a peer, and seeing how they're doing is really great. So I love the community aspect. It's very important.
Yeah, it's really cool to see them. Like, I had someone have questions about Houdini, and somebody else in our little team was like, oh, I did this, and like, gave them like tips on how to resolve their issue. So it's really cool to see them work together also that way. So our final question is for everybody. We're currently in the middle of this year's SLP. Are there things you are already thinking about in terms of ideas for future years to further enhance the program?
Always. I started a checklist this year as we went through each step with notes about what we need to do next year. The checklist kind of fell off around June when everything kicked off and it became madness for us. Hopefully the learners don't see that too. That's always my hope, is they don't see the paddling of our duck feet under the water. But yes, I actually think maybe one of the things that we need to do most is calm down our hopes sometimes, because every year we're adding so much, and we need a polished step. I think with so many of our group growing, I think each of us can take on a different role. And so my focus that I would love to see is the polishing part of it, while others can continue the further growth of things.
Yeah, I could definitely jump in on this as well. I 100% agree with Caitlin, and I know this year has been really tough for me, just time invested wise, and I know Caitlin has been picking up like a ton of, and everybody else as well. So it's definitely something that we need to divide and conquer and be maybe a little bit more formal about who's doing what. And I love the effectively documentation aspect of it, so that we're constantly reviewing and saying, hey, this came up, let's quick write it down, so that we can revisit that for the next year. And it's nice to have that subcommittee so that we can start as early as possible and impact next summer. So it's not, May and we're like, oh yeah, we have to do this. So that's really positive. Another section that I know Caitlin and I have talked a lot about, but also Carol and Rachel, are how can we dovetail SLP into the potential for new contributors into different ASWF projects. So that has been something, I know Sean's on the call today, and he did a wonderful presentation about Git. We also were encouraging students to attend open source days and the virtual town halls. I know a few of them went to projects that they were interested in professionally. So that has been something that I think we could really hone to make that relationship of an identity of ASWF more resounding throughout it. I think we're doing a good job this year. I think this is probably the best year that we have done that, but just trying to find the better connections for that SLP to become, you know, ASWF fan people.
Yeah, I think to Karen's point, every year we've just gotten better and had more polished steps. Like this year, Caitlyn did an overhaul of the review process, and it was a lot better and much more smooth to do. So thank you, Caitlyn. So I'm excited to see how we can continue to develop and grow the program.
Awesome. We have just a couple minutes left. Thank you so much to Tracy for great moderation and all of our panelists for participating in all the work that you've done on the SLP and other initiatives this year. We have like 2-3 minutes for a couple questions. And if anybody has them, feel free to ask. I know there's a couple people had to jump off the call, but if you do have questions, oh yeah. There's a question from Julia, who's a current SLP. For learners interested in helping out with SLP in the future, what systems do you have in place for them to get involved like Ximena did? Caitlin or Karen, you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that one. Yeah, so just joining the diversity channel, which obviously we push for all our SLPs to be a part of and attend the meetings and just sort of be a fly on the wall until they feel that comfort level to kind of push into involvement. And maybe this is it, Julia, like this is the time that now you have the experience and next year you're like, I could be a team lead, or I want to help with the organization portion of it. We have lots of different roles and ways that people can do small impact or, you know, be involved in the entire program. So just being involved in diversity Slack channel and coming to the diversity meetings. And, you know, the mailing list for me is a really good way for that because you get those updates and you can keep track on the Slack channel. So just come and unmute when the time comes to be like, I am interested. And really at the end of the day, you know, Caitlin and I are the ones who do a lot of the organization portion. So just reaching out to us individually is another way. Now you're on my list. So, so good luck.
Something I've heard from a lot of recent grads or former SLPs too is they feel they don't have enough knowledge yet to contribute back. But I don't think that's true. I think especially the team lead role, like Ximena is doing now, is a great role for someone who's just gone through the program because you went through it yourself. You know the course system and what you need to stay motivated through the courses. And that course was a little too vague. Maybe try this one. The guest mentor role that we've done as well too. Maybe you feel you don't have enough to contribute over 12 weeks of mentor sessions, but you can jump in for a handful. And I think someone who has just gone through applying to first-time jobs has a really valuable perspective for people who are just, versus those of us who interviewed 10 years ago, it's a whole different world. And so it's helpful to have all those perspectives.
If I can hop in also, sorry, I was gonna say, speaking to that I kind of felt the same way, you know, oh, I'm just starting out in the industry, kind of, I don't really have that, but then it's not even just about your industry experience, it's also about your interest experience. So for example, my team, we had a meeting and we're talking about, oh, I'm transferring from this other industry. And I was like, oh, I know someone who is an animator and they were a business major at MIT. And that's just from my own kind of, you know, listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos. I'm like, let me show you their social media. Maybe you can look into them. And so just anything you kind of encounter on your own too is super valuable.
Thanks for that. It's super awesome to see and really excited. Obviously, I like the idea of polish, but we also grow every year, whether we like it or not too. So it's going to be it's a fun ride and excited for next year already, which is kind of crazy. Look out for the closing presentations for this year's SLP. We'll be announcing that like on the diversity channel and mailing lists and stuff. So please come and support our learners for the conclusion of this year. And that's a great way to just support the program in general. Thanks for all of your attention today. We're a little bit over, so I'm going to conclude us by just repeating, if you're interested in the work that we're doing, join the diversity channel on Slack. And we'll see you if you're in person at SIGGRAPH and ASWF Open Source Days. Please don't hesitate to say hi to any of us. Now you've seen our faces. We're super friendly and we'd love to meet you if you're going to be in person. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.